Gods of fire, hear my prayer. Grant me the power of fire. And also, fix my snout.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Plot Twist, the channel where we talk about everything reading, writing, and plots. And today I have a... Sage, what are you doing?
I'm praying to the fire gods through their holy flame.
Sage, you know that's a fake candle, right?
Go away.
Okay. Alright, so today I have a book haul for you. Yeah, one of our local libraries had a sale, and usually Jesse over at Bartell's Bookshelf would come with us, but me and Laura went alone this time. Jesse had some other things to take care of this weekend, so but there would be other sales, so it wasn't like it was a huge issue. But we did come away with some nice things, Laura and I, and yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about those today. So almost all of these were no more than $2. There were a couple that were a little bit more, and then we also went to Half Price Bookstore. Yeah, Half Price Books. And we went there as well, so some of those were obviously a little bit more than $2. But for the most part, when these library sales happen, everything is $2 or less. So that is a great sale. Not so great for my bookshelves, but hey. So the first two books I ended up getting are actually, I believe, number 4 and 7 or 5 and 7 in the series. But these are two of the Invisible Library novels. We have The Lost Plot and The Mortal World. I'm not exactly sure where in the series these are. I have the first book. I haven't started it, but when we saw these, I just kind of figured, you know, I have the first book. I might as well. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna like it. And plus they were only like $1, so I said sure, why not. So yeah, I'm really hoping to enjoy these. I have no idea if these are standalones or if I need to read the first books or not. I can't really tell by the backs too much. They almost seem like they might be standalones, but they are also following the same character. So we'll have to see about that. If anybody has read these, please let me know in the comments if I need to read the first book first, or not, or if it's something I can do on my own. But yeah, so these are the first two books I ended up getting. All right, and the next one I got here is The Roar by B. Caitlin, I think it is. Yeah, B. Catling, I'm sorry. This one was incredibly interesting. I believe this is the first book. There is another one, I believe, called something to do with the Ravens. I don't know. If I remember it, I'll put it up here. So the Vor just sounded really, really interesting. I've been looking for this book for a while, and I found it in a few places, but I haven't really found it for a price that I was willing to go with. But this one I finally found, only for $1, so that was nice. So yeah, so outside the colonial town of Essenwald lies the Vor, a vast, endless forest. Sentient and magical, a place of demons and angels, of warriors and priests, the Vor bends time and wipes memory. Legend holds that the Garden of Eden still exists at its heart. Now a renegade foreign soldier intends to be the first human to traverse its expanse. Oh, there's a type on the back here. Armed is for some reason spaced out a little bit too much here, but that's okay. So, armed with only a bow, he begins his journey, but some fear the consequences of his mission. So a native marksman is chosen to stop him. Around these adversaries, swirls a remarkable cast of characters, including a tragically curious young girl and a cyclops raised by robots. So yeah, that was interesting. As well as such historical figures as proto-surrealist Raymond Russell and pioneering photographer Edward Muybridge. I can never say his name, I'm sorry. Fact and fiction blend, the hunter will become the hunted, and everyone's fate will hang in the balance in the vor. So yeah, this seemed to have a wild ride going at it. It sounded really, really fun. There's magic, there's robots, there's real people, there's fictional people, and it all just seems to go into this forest and become a tangled mess. And I'm really interested in seeing where that goes. And I am also interested in picking up the sequel once I find that one as well, for a decent price anyway. The next one I got is the Book of Lost Things by John Connolly. This one was not in the $1 area, but it just sounded so good I had to get it anyway. High in his attic bedroom, 12-year-old David mourns the death of his mother. With only the books on his shelf for company, with only the books on his shelf for company. But those books have begun to whisper to him in the darkness. Angry and alone, he takes refuge in his imagination, and soon finds the reality and fantasy have begun to meld. While his family falls apart around him, David is violently propelled in a world that is a strange reflection of his own, populated by heroes and monsters, and ruled by a fated king who keeps his secrets in a mysterious book, the Book of Lost Things. So yeah, that sounded really interesting. I love books about books. They're definitely one of my favorites in terms of storytelling. And this one just seemed amazing. I love it when reality and fantasy melds into a book for a character. Obviously, it's all fantasy. But yeah, so I just really like that kind of storytelling. Inkheart was probably the book that got me into this kind of genre, or trope, I guess it would be. I found this actually in the adult fantasy section, but it's about a 12-year-old, so I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work out. But we'll see. I obviously I read young adult as well, so it's not going to be an issue for me if the main character is younger. So yeah, we'll see how that goes as well. Alright, so this one was at the library sale as well. This is Night of the Howling Dogs by Graham Salisbury. So this one caught my attention. Oh, glare. Where you less glary at? There you are. So this one caught my attention initially because of dogs. So, I'll try and read almost anything with a dog in it, as long as the dog doesn't die at the end. And I'm usually fairly good at figuring out if the dog dies at the end or not, but I'm obviously not all-knowing. But this one isn't necessarily about a dog, but it has a very interesting premise. Right. On the big island of Hawaii, Dylan's scout troop hikes down into the desolation of an ancient lava flow. Yeah, that would be strange to camp in an active lava flow. To camp on a small beach below the volcano. It's beautiful and peaceful, but there's a problem. Louis Domingo. He and Dylan share a secret history, and it lies like a shark beneath the surface of everything they do. Until the world comes apart. Foreshadowed by two mysterious howling dogs, a disaster of unearthly proportions strikes. No one is spared his horror. But over the next hours, Dylan learns the true meaning of leadership and the will to survive. More amazing still, is that this story actually happened. So this is kind of interesting. This isn't necessarily a fiction book, I think. I think this is based on a true story, I'm not sure.
Sage here. This book is based on a true story with fictional elements. It is about Troop 77 in 1975 who survived a tsunami while camping on a remote beach.
So this was an interesting premise. Hawaii is not a location that I see a whole lot in books, especially novels where there might be some type of mythological thing going on. I think the first book I ever read where Hawaii was a destination, ironically enough, was my first trip to Hawaii. My first and only trip to Hawaii. Over a Thanksgiving break when I was like 12, I think. I had read a Christopher Pike book, Bury Me Deep, and that was set in Hawaii. And it was the first time I've ever read Hawaii as a location. So when I saw this, and saw that Hawaii was a location for possibly a horror novel of some type, that really caught my attention. more so than the fact that there's dogs involved. I'm really interested to see what Louis and Dylan have in common with each other. Probably for younger readers, so I doubt there's going to be anything too crazy into it, but we'll definitely see where this goes. This is a nice short book, so I might actually get to this pretty soon, just to see what's going on. Oh yeah, this is barely 100, barely 200 pages, it looks like. Oh yeah, we don't even breach 200, it ends at like 191. So yeah, that'll be an interesting read. I'm really interested in starting this one, so I might try and start this one first, because I'm still in that reading slump. I know, I went and started that book blanket, which I still haven't added to, unfortunately, but I'm hoping to add to it soon. I've got two books, actually, right now, that I'm pretty close to finishing, so hopefully those will be added soon, and then if I start this one up, hopefully that won't take too long to read either. Now, this one was a little interesting. This was, at Half Price Books, and this is quite possibly the most self-published thing I've ever seen in a while. So it's very crisp, very clean in terms of its cover here. I do like the cover quite a bit. There is another cover, I'll have to post that somewhere too, that I saw, which is darker. It has more of a black background. This one's white. I like this one a little bit better though. This is by Wild Child Publishing. I have no idea. I've never heard of that publisher. It has no logo to speak of whatsoever anywhere. So yeah, I've got nothing. I have no idea what this is. But it had a really, really cool premise. So this is Into the Soul of Madness by Rob Sick. Sick? Sick? I'm gonna go Sick. Alright, let's see. In the final year of college, Greg Mason's criminal psychology professor, Dr. Max Madwin, offers him the assignment of a lifetime to interview 3 serial killers. During his first interview, Greg unlocks a secret power buried deep within him. The moment he makes eye contact with the serial killers, he discovers the ability to enter their souls and see everything that person has lived and experienced. As he delves deeper into each killer's soul, Greg finds a link between all 3. Unfortunately, with each new soul he enters, he begins to absorb their evil into his own soul. Greg must uncover the mystery behind the 3 serial killers before he slips deeper into the soul of madness. So yeah, that sounded like an intense, wild ride, and I just had to get it. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. This is also a shorter book. Yeah, 268 pages. But the font is tiny. Look at this. Look at this. This is tiny. And this, I mean, this book isn't, much bigger than your typical mass market. But yeah, that surprised me a little bit. But this has, like, not been read at all. Like, the spine's not broken. This thing is in perfect condition. So, Rob, if you're out there, I just want to know that I have found your book. I am eager to read this book, and I really want to know your story. So if you happen to see this, or if anybody knows him, I really want to know about that. He's got his website on the back here as well, so I might go to that just to see what's going on. So I'm going to talk about these 3 books because they're all the same series. So I picked up these 3 books. They are the Foxcraft novels, and they're definitely for younger readers. I'll hold up book 1 here. So I got book 1, 2, and 3. So I have Foxcraft The Taken here by Mbali series or Sarlis, I think is how you pronounce this. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible with names. It's just awful. Even basic names I struggle with sometimes. I'm not sure why. But this was interesting. This seems like the kind of book I would have loved to have read when I was a kid. And probably a book that I would have picked up real quick because it has a fox on it, and I love foxes. Who doesn't love foxes? They're adorable. So this is interesting. I've been hearing a lot of great things about this series. and I've heard that it's magical and that it can cover some pretty deep issues for its level. So let's see here. Isla and her brother Piri? Pyrie? I'm gonna go with Pyrie, because that sounds cuter. Are two young foxes living just outside the lands of the Furless, or humans. The life of a fox is filled with dangers, but Isla has begun to learn mysterious skills meant to help her survive. Then the unthinkable happens. Returning to her den, Isla finds it ablaze and surrounded by strange foxes, and her family is nowhere in sight. I'm assuming her brother is with her, I'm not sure. Forced to flee, she escapes into the cold, grey world of the Furless. Now Isla must navigate the bewildering and deadly terrain, all while being hunted by a ruthless enemy. In order to survive, she will need to master the ancient arts of her kind. Magical gifts, the cunning known only to foxes. She must unravel the secrets of foxcraft. So that sounded like a blast. Magical foxes. I'm really excited to get into these. These are super short, obviously because they're kids' books. Barely into the 200 page number here. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Like I said, I have book 1, 2, and 3. I don't remember exactly how far this series goes. I think it's 5. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that one up.
There are only 3. You have too many books.
So yeah, really excited about that one. Let me tell you a story about this one. I've gone to several of these library sales now, and I've noticed quite often, the volunteers don't exactly know where books should be placed. And why they should be placed in places that they should be. And it's not their fault, obviously. They can't know every single book. But this one intrigued me because I found it in the erotica section, even though there's a big Scholastic sticker on the back. So, I understand volunteers are overworked, they're not being paid for this, but a little bit of attention to detail would be nice. Anyway, this one I had actually been looking for, so I didn't really mind too much finding that in the erotic section. So this is Openly Straight by Bill Koensberg. Writer, soccer player, Colorado resident, and, oh yeah, gay. Ref has been out since 8th grade, and he's fine with it. And so is everyone else. But sometimes he just wants to be a regular guy, not the gay guy. So when he transfers to an all-boys boarding school in New England, he decides to become openly straight instead. The transformation works. Raph revels in a new group of straight guy friends and the freedom of living without a label. But then he falls in love with one of his new friends, who doesn't even know that love is a possibility. So that's going to be interesting. I'm really hoping to see some tact with that kind of situation. I don't want it necessarily handled delicately, but I want it to be handled with knowledge and some sincerity as well. And I don't want it to be just played as a joke. You know, like, you can have comedy and stuff like this, but I don't necessarily want certain things to be played off as a joke. So we'll see how that one goes. If anybody has read this book, and can at least tell me if it's played off as a joke or not, or how sincere it is, that'd be great. But that's not necessary either. I'll probably read it anyway. What was I doing in the erotica section, you may ask? Apparently finding this. This book. I'm not sure how I feel about this book, really. So this is My Brother, Myself by Phil Andros. And it's really odd. This seems like your typical beach read, trashy, erotic romance novel. But obviously with a gay character, which is a little unusual. Or not completely unusual, but you don't see too often. This cover is just weird for a cover. I was super confused by this, but it caught my attention, so I guess it did what it was supposed to. Is this a... Oh lord, this is a self-insert. I didn't even notice that when I was picking it up. Oh my gosh. While tanning in the nude on a San Francisco beach, Phil Andros hears curious messages from his long-lost twin brother. Soon they lead him across across America in search for his doppelganger. His erotic adventures include a tongue bath in the sand, a helpful finger artist, a loaded sophomore who is a fast learner, and a butch cop in Oakland. Yeah, so when I read that, I was just like, okay, some erotic adventures while you try and go find your twin. So yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to learn a little bit more about this, do some research here. Because for some reason in my brain, the author and the character having the same name didn't even register. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look into this. I don't know if this is a self-insert. I don't know if it's a true story, or if this guy's just making up shit about himself, or what's going on there. So yeah, we'll have to look into that. If anybody knows anything about this book or this author, please let me know in the comments. I really wanted to hear more about this. Alright, I'm not going to talk about this one too long because I'm pretty sure everybody in the world knows about this book. But I finally picked up Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I have been told for years now that I would probably love this book. It apparently has everything in it that I like about fantasy novels. But I've never picked it up. And it was only... Not that it didn't sound good to me or anything like that. I just tend to like fantasy that has something new and exciting to offer. And I knew this was not like an old book, but I knew it was older in terms of that kind of stuff. And I wanted newer stuff at the time that I was initially suggested this book. But it finally broke down. It was only a couple bucks, so I just said fine. I'll pick it up, see what happens. Yeah, so I finally picked up Mistborn. I know, I'm late to the party. So this one is really interesting as well. So this is Secrets by F.M. McPherson. And this cover is kind of cool. Strange ape cat-like creature. I don't know, that nose isn't really ape-like, but the face obviously is, and I have no idea. So, yeah, so this was an interesting book that I picked up. This is a young adult fantasy, but I found it in the horror section. When it comes to books, one of the fastest ways to get me to put your book down is to tell me, main character isn't your typical teenage boy, isn't your typical teenage girl, isn't your typical teenager. Just as quickly, though, I will put it down if you say the character is a typical teenager. So this one started out pretty badly for me. Mike Yeager is a typical teenager. Well, sort of. He's got some problems, mental problems specifically. Maybe a few more than most, but at least he's human. Or not. So, I wasn't too vibing with it at first. But then it came with the at least he's human or not piece. So this is the importance of reading everything instead of just accepting the line at first. So let's see here. At the ripe old age of 16, Mike begins to awaken to a new self. A self that remembers 40,000 years of war with humans. Mike and his father are clones, as was every ancestor back to the first brother. The hominid who saw his pack sister, his future mate, raped and tortured by humans. Sharing empathetically in her fate, first brother vows revenge on humans, and for that is cast out of the pack. Every descendant since remembers the events vividly, for emotional memories are inscribed in their very DNA. But Mike doesn't know his hallucinations or memories, or that the shadows in his mind are pack brothers. And his father can't bring himself to tell Mike what's happening to him. Mike only knows he has one good, true friend, Dave. And Dave, too, has a secret. So yeah, that was, this is wild. I've never heard of I've heard of cloning in books before, obviously. I've heard of, I'm a descendant or a reincarnation of such and such, and, it's all gonna come to a head now, because why else would you have the book? So this was just kind of fascinating to me. It is a young adult, so I don't know how detailed it's going to be. I don't know what Dave's secret is, but I'm hoping for vibes, but I doubt it. Something tells me he's probably the descendant of said murderer of Pack's sister. I don't know. But yeah, so this is interesting. I have not been able to find anything on this. I was downloading this to my tracker app. I use an app to track what books I have and don't have, and I couldn't find anything. I had to search in order to get the cover on here because I kept wanting to add in like an art book for different monster erotica stories, I guess. And I was thinking, well, that's obviously not it. But it was under the same name, so I was confused. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm really excited about this one. This is another one that I might try and pick up right away, but we'll see about that. Alright, and the last one I ended up getting here is Burn by Patrick Ness. I had attempted to read Patrick Ness before. It was his Knife series, I think it was. But he wrote that in present tense, and I don't do well with present tense. Just something about it just irks me. I can't get my head around it. So I picked this up, not actually realizing who the author was. So another thing, don't necessarily worry about who the author is. But this one sounded really cool. It had a very unique world that I was super interested in seeing, and it's also about a dragon. So how could I put that down? Alright, let's see here. So January 1957, the Pacific Northwest. Sarah Dewhurst and her father, outcast in their little town of Frome, Washington, are forced to hire a dragon to work for their farm. Something only the poorest of the poor ever have to resort to. So actually that's kind of where I stopped. that was really all I needed. We're hiring a dragon. And that's just something that's common apparently, but only the poor have to do. And then when I got it home later, I went to I continued on, and it just sounded better and better as I went. Alright, so unfortunately, this has been Sarah's lot since the death of her beloved mother. The dragon, Casimir, has more to him than meets the eye. Sarah can't help but be curious about him, an animal who supposedly doesn't have a soul, but who is seemingly intent on keeping her safe from the brutal attentions of Deputy Sheriff Emmett Kelby. That's a bit of a red flag, isn't it? I'm not sure what that means. There's really no reason that Deputy Sheriff should be harassing a young woman for any reason whatsoever. I believe she's underage too, so we'll see. Because the dragon knows something she doesn't. He has arrived at the farm with a prophecy on his mind. A prophecy that involves a deadly assassin, a cult of dragon worshippers, 2 FBI agents in hot pursuit, and somehow Sarah Dewhurst herself. So yeah, that just sounded like a wild ride. It sounded super fun, that's why I picked it up. I love anything with dragons in it, and it's really nice to see dragons in a modern world. So we have the FBI involved, we have cops involved, we have dragons, we have farming, we have dragons for hire, and things like that. So yeah, it sounds like a really interesting read. I'm really excited about it. I do this all the time though. I get so excited about the books that I pick up, and obviously I'm, expecting to like them because I picked them up and I bought them home. But then I never actually get around to reading them, and I just go out and buy more. I can stop whenever I want to. I just don't want to. So that was my book haul, and it was a lot of fun. I do love these library sales. They support your local libraries. So always check to see if your library is having a sale of some type. So no real updates for today, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here. So yeah, if you've read any of these books, if you like any of these books, let me know about them. If you want to know more about some of the books, let me know too. I can maybe go into details of the histories of these books a little bit more for you if you need to. But yeah, that will be it for today. So thank you so much for joining us here on Plot Twist. I hope you have a great day and keep reading.